Welcome to Unit 3. This part of the course is going to focus on your immune system. There are certain sections that I'd like to cover before you venture into these new chapters, so let's just take a minute and look over a few things. There are several parts of your body which are normally sterile and you want them to stay sterile. Your blood, your lymph, for example, cerebral spinal fluid and the like. And right after birth, you do have a contamination. Basically, you're colonized with microorganisms, and that becomes your normal flora, which is a good thing because you want them there to protect you against the pathogens. But how do pathogens get into the body? And there are several portals of entry I'd like to cover. Your mucous membranes, for example, that's where a lot of respiratory tract diseases happen. They get in through your nose, for example, and then you end up with a terrible cold and you are just miserable. Gastrointestinal tract, maybe you ate some bad chicken at lunch and now you've got food poisoning. That's one way it can get in. The genital urinary tract, that's where sexually transmitted diseases enter. And this is the mother to infant passage during the birthing process and during the pregnancy. Skin is your best defense against microorganisms, intact skin that is. When it becomes broken, well then it's easy for pathogens to get into the body. And then there's the parenteral root, needle sticks, for example. And if you're going to work in a hospital, you need to be careful of this one. Now, microorganisms have various defenses to protect themselves against your immune system and to attack you. One way they protect themselves is with capsules. This is a glycocalyx material. It's on the outside and it helps them resist phagocytosis. It also helps them seem invisible to the immune system as well. They have certain cell wall components that attack your cells, like strep pyogenes, which causes strep throat. It also causes a variety of other diseases, which we'll talk about later. It can actually attach to your epithelial cells and break them apart. They carry some enzymes with them, special enzymes that can break down the blood, break down the cells, break down the collagen, and a variety of other tissues that you have as well. It can directly infect the cell, like for example viruses. They inject themselves into your cells, take over your machinery, and once they've replicated thousands of viruses, burst open your cell. And that's how they cause direct damage. Sometimes they carry toxins. These are poisons. There are two big classes of toxins, endotoxins and exotoxins. Endo meaning inside, exo meaning outside or exiting. Let's take a look at exotoxins first. Okay, there are three types of exotoxins. You have cytotoxins, which target cells, neurotoxins, which target your nervous system, and enterotoxins, which target your gastrointestinal tract. Now, these exotoxins are pushed out of the cell and target your cells. Basically, they're kind of spitting it out and targeting you. And there are a few notable ones. Diphtheria toxin, which causes diphtheria. Erythrogenic toxins from strep pyogenes give you that flushed red look when you have scarlet fever, which is attacking your heart at that time. Botulinum toxin, it affects your nervous system and it causes a flaccid paralysis, meaning you're kind of limp. You cannot contract your muscles. And tetanus toxin, same family, does the exact opposite. It causes a rigid paralysis where you cannot relax. Those two toxins are extremely poisonous and very deadly, but they have the same end result. They stop your breathing, basically. Vibrio toxin, you find a lot of this in your shellfish, like oysters and clams. So you definitely want to cook shellfish well. Endotoxins. Okay, these are inside the cell and they stay in the cell and they're usually associated with gram-negative microorganisms. What happens is you get sick, you go to the doctor gives you an antibiotic, you start to feel great, and then you start feeling sick again and you're still on your antibiotic. What happened was the antibiotic worked. It killed off those bacteria. But in the process, the bacteria were releasing all these endotoxins into your system as the cells were lysing. So then your body has to ramp up to fight the toxin that's in your system, and it takes quite a while to produce antitoxin. So you go through this roller coaster when you're sick with a gram-negative microorganism. And of course, it can manifest with different signs and symptoms. The signs are things that you can actually measure. Your blood pressure, your temperature. Symptoms are what you take to the doctor. Well, doc, I feel achy. I have a headache. Well, how do you put a number on a headache? So those are called symptoms. And when you put the signs and symptoms together, you have what's known as a syndrome. Okay, now let's go off to the next one. Let's talk directly about your immune system. There are two big branches to your immune system. You've got the nonspecific and the specific. The nonspecific, or innate, and specific, which is also known as adaptive in some textbooks. Okay? Nonspecific, they will try to get rid of anything. Doesn't matter what it is. They have structural elements and they have chemical elements, for example. In structural elements, this is your skin. It's a structure and it's protecting you. Mechanical elements are your ciliary escalator. If you've studied anatomy and physiology, you learned about it. It's located in your trachea and it acts like a broom to sweep out things so they don't embed deep into your lungs. And of course, you've got chemical components of your nonspecific immune system, which again target anything that's coming your way. For example, your gastric juices in your stomach. They're very acidic and they'll kill most everything. There are some exceptions to the rule. Lysozyme in your tears kills off microorganisms as well. And if we move inside your body, your white blood cells are part of this process as well. Now, I learned a mnemonic when I was sitting in your chair from my teacher, and it was never let monkeys eat bananas. What that means is you go from most prominent in your blood to least prominent in your blood. You have got the most neutrophils but the least amount of basophils. So in order of prevalence in the blood, it goes neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, which mature into macrophages, eosinophils, and basophils. And I have listed the different things they do in this presentation as well. Phagocytosis, you should know, is cell eating, basically engulfing an organism and eating it. It doesn't matter what it is. Again, we're in the nonspecific section. Inflammation is a way to take care of it. Complement, those are protein molecules that are signaling molecules that go for help. And interferon works especially effectively in viral infections. And then you've got natural killer cells, which do directly kill invaders. The specific immune part of your body needs to know you from what's not supposed to be there. That's called self versus non-self. And in microbiology, antigens are the invaders. Antibodies are what are used to protect you, signaling for help. And there are two arms of the specific immune system. You've got your humoral and you've got your cellular. Humoral, this is where your B cells, which make antibodies, are located, and I put the different types of antibodies in here as well for you to look over. And then, of course, you've got your cellular arm as well, and this is where your T cells come into play. And when you took anatomy and physiology, you learned that your T cells mature in your thymus. When you get an initial infection, your body produces antibodies, and some of those go into memory, kind of like a library. And when you get infected with that same microorganism again, your body will check out those T or B cells so that it can ramp up production of antibodies quickly to call out for help. Sometimes you don't even know that you've been infected because that works so fast. Now, there are different ways to acquire immunity. It can be naturally or it can be artificially. Naturally means that you got sick and your body got you well. That would be naturally active immunity. It can be naturally passive immunity when, for example, mom who is breastfeeding has passed on her antibodies to her baby. It can be artificially active, meaning you get a vaccine, like you get a flu shot every year. Or it can be artificially passive, meaning you're going on a trip to some exotic location and you need a specific antibody to protect you while you're there. Very short term, it'll last maybe a few months, just long enough for you to get there and get back. All right, that's a basic overview of what you're going to be studying in depth in this next section of microbiology.